guys, welcome to You're the Problem. I'm Carol,
And I'm Steve.
and this is episode 1. I'm just thrilled that we're finally here. This has been months of preparation and working together to try and get to this point. So, yay, I'm so excited. How you doing,
I mean,
Steve-O?
it's like a 6-month long homework project that's finally coming to a completion. So it's cool though.
We figured that the world needed 5,000,001 podcasts. So, why not? Here we are jumping on the bandwagon. But yeah, I'm just thrilled that we're getting it together. It is my fault that we're doing this show because I guess you want to call it a midlife crisis. It's kind of the thing you do when you turn 40, you get a podcast. So yeah, my background, I spent the last, 18 years in marketing, communications, PR, those kinds of roles. And I've always sort of wanted to do this podcast. It's been probably like 5 years of you could call it a dream, but telling myself, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to do your corporate job. And so when I stopped working last, I just figured, okay, now's the time. Let's just do this. And honestly, if I just have fun with it and we make 2 people laugh, that's good enough for me. And if those 2 people are you and me, I'm good with that. So yeah,
I have always prescribed to that philosophy. Anytime I'm running my mouth, which is something I do probably too frequently, it's more about my own enjoyment than the people around me. But if they do laugh, then that's even better. So
it's a bonus, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think a lot of probably 40-something-year-olds can relate to varying degrees, but I think like you get out of high school, you go to college, now I got to get a degree. Now I got to get a job. Now I got to get married. Now I got to have kids. And like you get all of that done. And for me, my career, I had reached the top to where I feel like I couldn't really go much further. And I felt accomplished in what I did. And I was kind of like, well, like now what? And also, why am I not like finding that much joy out of life? And how come I'm just kind of like, I guess, letting life live me? And so that's when I was like, let's just shake things up, do something fun. And here we are.
Yeah. I mean, same thing, probably 16, 18 years working in kind of the corporate world. I don't know that anybody grows up and says, boy, I can't wait to grow up and get into the corporate world or whatever,
It just
right?
sort of happens. Yeah.
You want to be an astronaut, a firefighter, a famous celebrity, an athlete. Nobody says, I'm going to get a corporate job and kind of do admin until I retire. So I don't know that was ever like a calling, but
right.
It pays the bills. And after you pay the bills and you deal with your family and things you have to do to, get by, what's left? And at this age, I don't think many people have hobbies. I think our hobbies have all become scrolling TikTok and social media. So,
oh my gosh,
what are we doing actually to invest in ourselves, to enjoy ourselves? When I was young, my struggle with the corporate job was, this isn't my purpose. What is my purpose? Like not identifying with a purpose. So maybe running my mouth is a purpose, and you inviting me into your midlife crisis podcast is an opportunity for me to explore my purpose.
Yeah. I do think too, like, I don't know how you felt impacted, but once you have kids, like I was like killing it at my corporate job. I did find some kind of reward in it. But then when I had kids, I felt like, okay, now I have to split my time. I can't be the last one in the office anymore because I have to go pick up the kids from daycare. Because if I don't, it's like $6 a minute or something crazy, and then I have to go home and then I have to hurry up and feed them and then give them a bath. Like all of a sudden, what it felt like I was just able to give it so much time, give my job so much time. It felt like I was kind of like fighting each side of my life for time. And it just got completely exhausting. And it's honestly why I stopped working to begin with, was I can't be a really good mom and be a really good employee. And for me personally, I have a hard time not doing something at 100%. Like I'm not very good at kind of driving in the middle lane, if you will. So for me, I just was like, I feel like I have to be all in for my kids. And that was just my own personal choice. But yeah, it's really hard to like find the time to do both really, really well for me anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if this thing ever becomes a giant success, right? Like dreams, you'll get all the credit because the fact that you quit your corporate job and sat at home doing nothing, you're the main reason that this thing came together because all of your brain power went into it. I mean, I think a lot of people assume that every 40-year-old in their basement can just start getting a microphone and doing a podcast and it's so easy and anybody can do it. And why would I want to listen to you? But there's so many steps that went into putting all this together that I don't think anyone but us will ever appreciate. So you'll get all the credit if this becomes a thing for sure. I mean, and even right now in its infancy, you get all the credit for being the spearhead at least of this whole thing.
Well, yeah, I did. I had a dream, but it was funny because I had the idea and then I thought to myself, how am I gonna pull this off? Because if it's just me alone, it's never gonna happen. I also, for whatever reason, have a hard time prioritizing things just for myself. So if other people are involved, there's some sort of, I guess, responsibility or some sort of like
pressure.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good word, pressure for it. And I also know that I don't know how to edit. I don't know anything about lighting. This is not all my idea. I barely knew how to plug this microphone in. So like I really needed someone to help me. And I remember a friend from high school, shout out to Sean because he's producing this whole thing. But I remember him saying he was going into a similar field as me. I went to school for communications and marketing, and he was taking a similar path, but more focused on filming. And so I messaged Sean out of nowhere one day, 20 years later, and I said, hey, I want to do this podcast. Can I pick your brain? What do you think? And it just so happened that that was his career. I mean, he does podcasts and other things for his job. And so we talked a bit. He was very skeptical, which rightfully so, because like I came out of nowhere with this. Like I literally was like, hey, Sean, remember me? You want to do a podcast? But he heard me out. He gave me some feedback, and then he kind of just said, okay, let's talk more about this. And then I thought to myself, like, who the heck am I gonna co-host with? Because it can't just be me.
And after the first two people told you no.
First of all, that's not true, but I won't lie, I did have a list of people that I thought would make good candidates for this, but you were at the top. So, and I thought, who, does this come natural to? And I think every time we're at a holiday function, family function, because for those of you who don't know, Steve's my brother-in-law, we just start kind of like riffing back and forth and talking about the universe and what's going on. And it just becomes really interesting. So I thought this is a natural. And plus, you like to talk about yourself and you don't take yourself serious. And you also like to pick on me. It was just it makes sense. It just makes sense.
No, definitely. But, and as many times I can't even count the number of times that someone has told me after listening to me rant or say some ridiculous story that, oh, you need to be on a stage. Oh, you should go do an open mic, or you should do this, you should do that. And in my mind, this is just normal for me. Like this isn't a specialty. Like I don't think of myself as some professional person who belongs on a stage. Like I don't give myself that kind of credit. Yeah. But a lot of people do say that. And I think in the week that you approached me,
I was just gonna say your hobby is to talk, I think. Like you like talking. So it just, again, like that is your hobby, but continue.
Yeah. But I mean, in that week that you came to me, I think I probably had 2 or 3 people specifically say to me, like, you should start a podcast. Like the amount of shit that comes out of your mouth, like you should just start a podcast. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But I'm also king procrastination and I have a ton of good ideas, but I don't ever do anything to make them happen. So the fact that you were the antidote to that and then came to me as the 3rd or 4th person that week with this idea, I was like, all right, okay.
Universe.
I hear it. I'll do it. Let's just try. and 6 months later, here we are. So
here we are. Yeah.
Right.
I do. And maybe Sean can chime in on this, but I do feel like it came together in that first meeting that we all had, the three of us. There was really like a vibe there. And I think Sean was reluctant, a little bit skeptical. I think he honestly fell in love with you, Steve. And you said some kind of silly, funny line about Biden being a skin suit. And, we're closing the meeting and Sean says something like, I'm in, you had me at skin suit. And I just thought that was so funny. Like, and just such a good one-liner. Hey
Sean.
Hey guys, you had me at Skinsuit. What can I say?
When the conspiracies are the thing that bring us together, it's gonna work.
Yeah. Nah, I knew instantly, you guys, your banner back and forth. We had something special, so we had to get it on tape.
And here we are.
Recording.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Awesome.
But I'll be in the background,
you,
and I'll pop in sometimes and interject and put in my 2 cents. But holler if you need me. I'll be here just running the show behind the scenes.
Awesome.
Well, thank God for Sean saying yes to us, because there's no frickin' way that you and I, Steve, could pull all of this shit off. Like, there's just no way. So I think we all bring something to the table, and I'm glad we're here. So
yeah,
but yeah,
and the vibes work.
And the vibe
so
totally
you
works.
you set this whole thing up. We've gone through 900 steps to get to this point. And I think it's worth noting, right? And you had an easier go with this than I did, but it's worth noting, like, just the background that you have behind you and that I have behind me. Like, what did you do to set yourself up to have what would be your podcast background versus doing this at your kitchen table?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've also, again, worked in public relations. I've interviewed people. So the whole package always has been part of like the end goal when you're working on something like this. And so, I looked at other podcasts, I checked out, and I have some favorite podcasts that I watch anyway, but I think it just has to be like authentically you. Like, I mean, I love Pomeranians. Where's he at?
There it is.
And and like one day I'll tell the Shawn Mendes story. There's a frame of him and me and him in the background. And like, you just have to kind of go with what is authentically you. And I think that just kind of came natural, and you need to, jazz it up. You too. I mean, yours looks, if everyone saw what it looked like before.
If like, I tilt this camera.
Actually, that's in our
a little bit.
That's in our intro little video that we have.
Yeah. The bunker that I'm in right now.
Yeah. It was the bunker.
The white concrete bunker that is my basement. And if I were to tilt this camera even a centimeter in any direction, you would see how fake what behind me is, or how it is. I mean, it looks nice now, but it's all fake.
Yeah.
Just like everything else you see on TV and the news and Joe Biden's skin suit, it's all fake. Even my background.
So yeah, the world we live in.
And my spirit animal is back there too. I have my little George Carlin. I figured I had to decorate for my set, right? So what am I going to do? I got a plastic plant from Lidl. This is like $4. I have a Keystone light sign that was made by one of my best friends. So that's speaking back to our youth and our beer of choice. And then I have the prophet George Carlin there getting arrested for saying the 7 dirty words you're not allowed to say.
So that is authentically you. And I think if you're just you really can't go wrong. Like, it just comes together. So awesome. I think thinking
cool
into
segue.
like
you just
next. I know. I'm
awesome.
trying.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm trying to think of like what's
good
next.
Segue.
I'm trying.
Well, you midlife crisis. That's what you did to get here, and that's what you need to explain. I mean, you're what, 40? Are you 40?
A little bit.
Are you 40 yet?
Yeah, I'm 40. I'm 40.
Yeah, I'm 42.
40. Yeah. I mean, I'm not yet. Sorry, guys.
You'll be there
next year.
I'm already on this boat with you.
You're on the train, man.
I mean,
and at that age, what do? You start a podcast. You start getting really into making sourdough bread.
Yeah.
What else are you doing, Carol? Now that you're 40 and you're old.
I mean, I have all kinds of weird hobbies that I used to make fun of. Like when you're a kid or a teenager, you're like, my grandmother had these bird baths and like really expensive ones that had like fountains in them, and they were like made of ceramic and shit. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then she used to worry about feeding them. And I'm like, that's like so lame. Why does she care if these birds bathe or eat? Like,
was she unemployed?
What does she do
like
with her day? No, I think she had some jobs. Like she, she kept it real. But so I'm like, I remember making fun of her for that. And so full circle, when I was a kid, my parents had these 2 parakeets. There was like a blue one and a green one. And I don't know why that matters, but I remember it in my brain. And every week, my mom would change the cage out. And when she would open this freaking door, every single week, these little would fly right out of the cage and be all over the house. And it wasn't like they'd come out of the cage and like chill. They went into like full panic attack mode, and they would just like, I don't know if they were trying to escape. I don't know if they were trying to like, I don't know, kill somebody. I don't know what they were doing, but they were panicking and they were flying all over the house. They were pooping everywhere. And I just remember being terrified. Like, I would just hide in the bathroom until she would catch them and put them back in the cage. But it was like every week she's like, oh no, they got out of the cage again. And I'm like, Mom, why haven't you learned how to contain these birds yet? But it terrified me. Now, fast forward, and I have my old lady starter kit. I literally have a bird bath. I have the bird feeders. I got all the seed and the there's like special little squares you can hang up so they come and peck it. I'm like trying to attract birds to my house because I like to look at them now. And I'm just thinking, 1, I overcame a fear, so that's kind of nice. But 2, like I'm old. I'm my grandmother now. Like I'm totally watching them.
And I don't know if you'd spend that much time on this hobby if you still had your job. So maybe all your free time is giving you the ability to delve into these things.
To be old. Yeah.
And well, I mean, I think tigers are a cool animal, but I wouldn't want to be trapped in a house with a panicky one, like in my mom's living room, and have my mom be like, oh, the cat's mad again. Like I wonder why the birds are upset, but now you're trying to attract them. So you've got some kind of trauma bond with birds. That's fun.
Something. I think I've come to peace with them.
I feel like I'm sure I have things that would identify me as older now. I won't admit them because that's probably not true, right? Like my wife, your sister would point out all sorts of things. I think I've been consistent. My socks are still ankle socks. I refuse to conform. My kids are walking around with socks up their calves like my dad used to have when, I'd catch him getting ready for work in the morning, walk into the bathroom in his tighty whities and tube socks. And that was my trauma. Unlike you, I'm not now as an adult trying to attract tube socks and tighty whities into my yard like you are with birds. But, I've remained consistent. I will remain the millennial with the ankle socks. And
but that is you being old. You wearing your ankle socks is now the new tube sock. Like your kids look at you and go, ew, he's wearing ankle socks the way you looked at your dad wearing his tube socks. Like it's the same thing.
I think they will look at me in my clothing with ankle socks much differently than I remember my dad in his underwear with tube socks on. But I get I get the vibe you're throwing. People
for sure,
I think, have things that they stand their ground on as they age, and they say, this is what I'm doing. I'm keeping this. But then there's also things that you morph and change into. Like when I was younger, shorts were a little longer. They fell below the knee. Little, cliche clothing references. But like now, I don't want that. I do kind of want them a little shorter. And I think that's like an old man quality. You want shorter shorts.
Totally.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, but there are things that you morph into as you age.
Yeah. What that is though, is you start to prioritize comfort over what people think and what's cool. I would hate for anybody to show up at my house unannounced on like a Tuesday because it is not, I'm just wearing whatever's comfortable, maybe my pajamas, my hair isn't like I look like a mess. And so I think you just get older and you're like, who cares? I don't give a shit. Like,
I think one of the best things is when like a friend surprises you and says, hey, I was going to stop over. I'm nearby. Are you home? And you're like, yeah, of course. No. I never see my friends anymore because I'm an adult. So sure. And then you go into a full blown panic and you clean your house 900 miles an hour. You put away the laundry that's been piled up that you don't admit to anyone outside of your house, that you climb over to get into bed. Like, cause your friend's going to come over, he's going to inspect your bedroom. Right. So you'll do all these manic things to straighten your house. And then the friend goes, oh, something just happened. I can't make it. And it's like,
and you're like,
my house is all clean now. So this is like, cool.
Yeah.
And then you wonder if like that was a setup. Like, did my wife call
you? Just trying to
and
panic.
Tell you to do that? so that I would clean the whole house.
That's smart. That's really
That's what the conspiracy theorist does. They think this was a setup.
Remember that. I'm going to use that one day.
Well, it depends if your husband cares that people see his home in disarray.
Does. Yeah, right. For me, it's always the toilet. Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm like, people cannot know that we poop. Like, clean the toilet if someone's coming over. And the same thing if I go to someone's house and they have like their toilet looks like it's blown out. I'm just like, oh man, what else? Like, it's just the thing for me that indicates you got a clean toilet, but you got clothes on the floor. It's fine. Like, you're clean. But if you've blown that toilet out and everything else is immaculate, I'm thinking something's shady, something's up. Like,
that's a hard thing to keep up with in this house. And I won't try and take credit for cleaning bathrooms because I'll get killed in my sleep if I try to say that that's something I do, because I don't.
Yeah.
But it's hard to keep up with here because my oldest son, I don't know if it's like something he finds enjoyment in or if he is just so checked out that he doesn't even consider it. Like, he's waiting to get back on his Xbox, but he uses the toilet and beaches a submarine on the bowl and never flushes it. Like, you'll walk in the bathroom and go, why does it smell like that in here? And you look and it's like 5 hours ago, he and it's enormous. It's like my whole forearm. And I mean, beached, sticking out of the water. Like,
no.
It's absurd. You flush it sometimes and it just lays there and stares at you. So like that is how my wife will get into heaven, because she has to deal with that aspect of keeping the house
I'd be
clean.
livid.
Like, he doesn't care.
Man.
Like, I went in the bathroom. I went in his room the other day and I threatened him. I'm like, the next time
I had to pull a cameo on that one.
I'm like, the next time I find you didn't flush the toilet, I was like, I'm going to scoop it out of the bowl and bring it to you, because this is ridiculous. Like, first of all, nobody goes number 2 that many times in a day. And for a kid your size, for that sort of abomination to come out of you is ridiculous.
We got to take you to the doctor. Yeah. Like, what's going on there?
Frankly,
my God, I would die.
I wish, you know what I mean? Like, when you do go, you really want to go, right? And then when it's not like that, you're a little disappointed. You're like, I wish my stomach was a little flatter, because when you're 40-ish and you're holding pounds that you don't want, you think that that's going to help.
Right. You're like, can I just poop it out? Yeah. Oh my God.
I had a friend that used to be real heavy back in the day, and he would go to all these extremes to lose weight. At one point, he shaved his entire head. Like, never did. Always had like nice hair and everything. And he shaved his whole head, and he acted like it was just a thing he did. Like, he's just trying it out. And I was like, bro, did you do that because you think in some way that contributes like 5 grams to the weight on the scale? And he was like, I hate you. You're the only person that would have figured that out. Just shut the up. So,
he did, though? That was true? That's why he did it?
Yeah. I mean, it's what he said. I don't know if he's just leaning into my nonsense, but these days he's a fit, handsome, full head of hair individual.
Well, then it worked.
His struggles are over and his hair is back, and I'm still a but he's my friend, so it's okay.
Let's move on from that, because oh my God, I'm going to talk to my nephew the next time I see him. You want to talk about a problem in society that's on my mind, maybe?
I mean,
that sound
if it's all about you, it's your show, right?
It's the Carol show. No, I'm kidding. But I think you have some good insight into it. I recently watched this documentary. What the hell is it called? It was on Max. It was about the Carter brothers. And for your information, Nick Carter is a Backstreet Boy. But it was just about these 3 women that were claiming that they were sexually assaulted by him. And I was like, wanted so bad for it to be not true. But when you hear their stories, you sort of believe that it's at least possible that it happened. And I was just like crushed. I'm like, oh man, like Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, like the cute one, the one, he's in most of the songs. And I just remember being like, yeah, like sad and icky. And I'm like, man, I really don't want this to be true. And then I started thinking about all the other celebrities that's, have done awful things. And it's like, I guess my dilemma, my question, my problem with it all is, can you?
That's helpful, because I have no idea who these people are.
I know you don't. That's why I said Backstreet Boys. You at least
that was actually the wrong one. Sorry, hold on.
Yeah, see, yeah. I was like, oh great, is that who it is? You could have showed me anybody.
Guys, though. Those are it. It was called Fallen Idols. That was the title of it. Yeah, it just made me think, like, am I even allowed to listen to Backstreet Boys now? Because it feels kind of icky if he did all these things. And like, same thing with Diddy, right? Like, or R. Kelly, like, are you allowed to like the music? Because it's just like, there's something that happens when you realize that these people, potentially traumatized people, are deliberately hurting other people. And it's like, I don't like you, I don't agree with you, or your morals are all messed up. So can I really appreciate your art and the stuff that you're making? I don't know. Like, it just kind of made me feel like that's a huge bummer. Like,
I mean, I think it has to do with how good was your art, right? Like, Michael Jackson is lauded as like the greatest of all time. He's the king of pop. Sure. He's an icon. And there has been countless stories and reports and allegations about him doing all sorts of scandalous things with little kids, giving them the Jesus juice or whatever the hell it was called, and having all these sleepovers. You know, Macaulay Culkin won't admit it, but told stories of, you know, his early life hanging out, living with, spending time at Michael Jackson's house. You got to question the parents in that too. But I think Macaulay Culkin even said, like, he was so my friend that one day there was a new boy and I like came to the airport and Michael was with a new boy and he didn't even look at me. He didn't even make eye contact with me. Like, he just blew me off. And like, so there was like child jealousy over Michael and the relationships that he was having. And there's all kind of weird bizarreness there.
Weird stuff. Yeah.
Like, people with role models, like, you know, parents are concerned about the music kids listen to, and is that person a good role model or somebody for you to pay attention to? And it's like, here's Michael Jackson, like, surrounded in controversy and all this wild shit, and he was just a money-making machine. So even to this day, Halloween comes around, we're all listening to Thriller, right?
Yeah, but I know. I think you like to pretend,
kids in the butt. Like, what was he doing? Like, so if you're a Backstreet Boy, yeah, you might get shunned, you get shut out. But if you're Michael, then, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but he does it. But the thing is, like, if you look at some comments and stuff of people like diehard fans, and like, I'm a fan, but I also have to, like, when you hear some of these stories, you're like, I feel like I will weigh the truth to it, and then like, does it come into question my own morals if I'm still supporting somebody that's so immoral that, you know, they're raping people? And it's just like, I don't know. It just called into question like these kinds of things. And I think there's something to burying your head in the sand and hoping that maybe it's not true, and hoping that, you know, I'm just not going to pay attention to that. I'm just going to enjoy the stuff. Like, it goes back to like, don't meet your hero, right? Like, don't.
Yeah.
Because inevitably they might disappoint you, and you might, and I'm not talking about, you know, everyone makes mistakes. No one's perfect. And, you know, I don't think that's not my point. I think it's when it's so dramatic that these celebrities are seriously damaging other people in very traumatic ways. It's like, I just don't know. I just rather not know, I guess. Like,
well, a lot of them are damaged too by the lives they've led in the limelight, Hollywood, the music industry. They've all been damaged. And how many of them were child stars whose parents must have been supportive of just thrusting them into the limelight, having them have no limitations. True. You know, don't go to school. Their whole life is completely different. And then they, like Michael Jackson, lived their childhood as an adult because they didn't truly have one. So is he psychologically damaged? Right. All these Mickey Mouse Club kids, and everybody's just people. So like, don't meet your heroes. Yeah. I mean, you can have someone that you idolize and all that. And then when you meet them, you realize like, oh, you're just a person too. You see their flaws. And yeah, I worked with a guy who had this good saying. It's just kind of casual saying, but he said, sure, yeah, everybody got shit with them. Right. And that's so true. Like, everybody has something about them that sucks, that could be better. Mm-hmm. Some people on that spectrum are doing terrible things to kids. Some people are mistreating women. Some women are on Johnny Depp's bed. Everybody got shit with them, right? Pun intended. Right. Like, that's true though. That's like, what's going on. And I saw, there was I'm not like a giant Star Wars buff, but
Nerd.
I've watched some of the series that are on Disney, and there's this series that they just had, Ashoka, and in there's a character who has this line. He used to be a Jedi and he defected, and now he's like, I guess, a part of the Sith, and he's been faking like he wasn't a Jedi once, and he runs into a guy who knows his background, and he's kind of taunting him, and he's like, do you miss it? And he said, I miss the idea of it, but not the truth. And that's the same with like your heroes that you meet, celebrities that you've idolized. You fell in love with an idea that you created of that person.
True.
But not the reality,
like
not all the gritty realness of that situation. That can apply to so many things too. Like you had a boyfriend that you used to date, and you guys broke up and you lived your lives a little bit. And then you try and circle back and rehash that moment. And it's not the same, right?
No, it never will be.
You like the idea of when it was good, but it's not good. You know, the reality is it sucks. And
yeah.
So that can be disappointing. So, but once you have that kind of realization in your mind, you can temper how you let things affect you.
Yeah, it is. It's like a character they play that you get to see. I think before there was social media, it was easier to just see the character. You didn't really get a peek at behind the scenes. And I don't think, now if you in this case that I'm talking about, these people have platforms because they have social media. These women can go out and share their stories, and they can find each other. I mean, in the documentary, they say, well, I heard, this girl started talking about how she was molested. And I go, oh my God, that's exactly what happened to me. And so now there's strength in numbers, and there's connections that wouldn't have been made if it wasn't for social media. And so I think it's harder to hide things. I think it's harder to keep that character all wrapped up pretty in a box and a bow. I think, things get out a lot easier now. And I think on the flip side too, though, social media has leveled the playing field. You have people like Girl and other influencers that have platforms and just get their 15 minutes of fame. Otherwise, we would have never known,
I mean, and that started too, like with MTV and reality shows. Like Ozzy Osbourne was the Prince of Darkness. He was the king of heavy metal. He was, idolized. And then they had that show at the Osbournes, and you see him tripping and stumbling and mumbling and slurring through his house. He can't speak. He's like a total mess.
Right.
And now, like the idea of what it was to like Ozzy has now changed. And that's just one instance. And then you had people who were just average Joes like you and me who got on reality TV and got their 15 minutes of fame. And some people took off and some people didn't. And now with social media, it's just like the magnified high octane version of that premise. And you have Girl who's pretty much run her 15 minutes. I think she was just at some meet and greet events this past week, and I don't think she got the big eruption of applause that she had been getting because it ran its course. Now the question is, does she really have anything else to contribute? Does she get a podcast? Does she do some other sort of thing that keeps her in the limelight and keeps that kind of train rolling? But that's
I think it's sort of though like what society likes to do to people, and I think particularly for women, like we see her come out, she's cute, she's adorable, she says something really funny and relatable, and then we blow her up, right? We put her on a pedestal and we make this big deal about her, and then we almost like expect too much. Like, okay, that was funny, what else do you have? And it's like she didn't ask for that. She said a funny comment, and now we're putting her on stage and putting her here and there, and it's like I think she's doing amazing for what's being thrown at her. But there's this, now, there's inevitably this downfall that I think happens when you build somebody up so quickly, and the trajectory of how quickly she rose to fame. Unfortunately, I think it goes just as fast on the downside of it. And it's one of those unfortunate things. I mean, I think she's adorable, but
with her case, I mean, she's obviously 21, she's super young.
Very young.
I mean, she also made a choice to pursue this. She could have easily said no, but she's 21. Sure. And what are the chances? I mean, she came from, I think she was working in a spring factory in Tennessee, like just doing some menial task sort of job. No disrespect, been there, had those jobs, but she left it. She said, let me go give this a try. And now she's run that gauntlet, but she's even made jokes of it too. Like she knows that everybody says like her 15 minutes is almost up. So she has a video I saw where she's like, well, if my 15 minutes is up, I'm going to do the best I can. And she took all this money that she'd gotten and she went to a pet store and she bought all this pet food and went and donated it to an animal shelter because she had the ability to do that. So there's, you know, she's someone with a little power, ability, and influence in that moment. And she decided to do something good with it. So if that's genuinely who she is, that's great. And I hope she does catch on in some other way and stay in the scene if she's a good person, because there's not a lot of that out there. A lot of people are twisted and then they get all the attention, you know, like our leaders.
You got that right. Yeah. You want to move on to the problematic clips of the week?
Well, I think the most current controversial thing is the Olympics opening ceremonies that occurred yesterday or the day before, where they basically made a mockery of all Christianity.
Yeah, it was some sort of Last Supper mockery. I've seen some people online say, no, they're not mocking the Christianity in the Last Supper, but it's kind of obvious. I mean,
pretty obvious.
I mean, they recreated the Last Supper with drag queens.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with drag queens, but when you're putting them at the table to emulate the Last Supper, they didn't say the person was Jesus, but he's sitting in the seat, or she, or they, or they're sitting in the seat.
Right.
You know, the meal on the table, instead of being the body of Christ, was a large platter of fruit with what looked like a large naked man painted blue, as if he were a piece of fruit that was about to be devoured by all these drag queens. And I'm pretty sure one of the guys in that lineup was wearing like leather booty shorts and had his balls hanging out.
Yeah.
And there was a child at the table. So if that's not mocking Christianity, it's certainly not being respectful to it. I'm not a religious person, and I can still understand how that could be offensive to people. I mean, imagine if on the other foot, they made a mockery of Judaism. They would be the most anti-Semitic psychos you've ever heard of. Or if they mocked Islam, the outrage would be crazy. But that they felt like they had a board meeting and a bunch of people got together and went, check out this idea we got. We're going to have drag queens. This guy's going to be out. And then we're going to open everything up with the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. You know, we're going to have the pale horse ride down the river and into the stadium and open up, you know, so we're mocking and emulating like what Rapture, the apocalypse, all the apostles are drag queens. Like, and in that meeting they went, this is great. Like you should come up with more ideas.
I would love to be, I want to be a fly on that wall. Like, how did that meeting go? Like with the ideas, did anybody stand up and go,
they went and scrubbed most of it off their official channels because they did get outrage, as you would imagine. So, and now, like when I Googled to even look for videos to give you, a lot of what's out there now are just the apology interviews from the creators and the producers.
And we're going to show some of that too. But did you want to compare like this Olympic opening ceremony to another one from years past?
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to put on my tinfoil hat,
let's go. Tinfoil hats on.
I'll make you one.
I have a button for that here somewhere.
In the 2012 Olympics, the opening ceremonies were all around like illness and pandemic. So you had an Olympic field with all these dancers and performers, and they're dressed up like sick and dying people in hospital beds.
Oh, God.
There was like hundreds of hospital beds on the field. There were people dressed up as nurses. And then I think at one point there was like a big Grim Reaper like walking through this scene. You see, a little creepy. A lot of hospital beds. There you go.
I see what you mean.
You know, like all these like gothic plague like.
This was 2012?
There's like
2012. So 8 years prior to the real pandemic. But so the conspiracy theorists will say that the people in power are always showing you what they're going to do. They're saying it right to your face and expecting you to go, that's crazy. And then they do it. So in this case, they're saying like this was the preamble to actually affecting the pandemic. People that believe the news will go, that's crazy. Nobody made the pandemic happen. You know, a turtle made out with a turkey and on a hamster in a wet market. That's what happened. Right? It didn't come from a lab leak. There was no Wuhan coronavirus lab that came out of accidentally or purposefully. it was all coincidence. So how could they, you're a conspiracy theorist if you look at the 2012 Olympics and say that they were alluding to what was to come. But if they were alluding and they are puppet mastering events in the world, what do the current Olympic Games allude to? Rapture, apocalypse, mocking of religion, right?
Let's take a look. So we got Twitter, or formerly Twitter, now known as X, pulled up here for those listening. And we're going to watch some things here. What's the first one we're going to watch? This is pretty scary looking.
Is that Marie Antoinette holding?
And then it repeats because it's a short clip.
To a rock concert. A little dark, but okay.
There's
metal concert, no big deal. I can live with this. The chopped off head, whatever. Okay. I don't speak French, so she could be saying that, we're all going to die, and I have no idea.
And then they had some pale horse or something, right?
Right. So, I'm not a very astute religious scholar, but my understanding is that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse symbolize, the rapture or whatever, right? So this is supposed to be the pale horse, and the rider that was on him was death. So here he comes to open up the games. That's fun.
Yeah, I gotta say that's up there with some of the more creepier opening ceremonies. What's this picture of?
I'm not familiar with that one, but it looks like a boatsman. Isn't there like a thing where when you die and go to hell, there's a guy who ferries you there?
Yeah. What about this one? Here's the comparison of the Last Supper table.
Like, I was just gonna say, I don't know why you would pick the world. Like, this isn't just to do with France or just to do it. Like, everybody watches this. Although I have to admit, like, I only watched the Celine Dion performance. I didn't watch this too. But like, why would you pick the world stage to do something like this on, and to just put this out there? It just seems kind of too wild. Couldn't you just done something nice and called it a day? Couldn't have been like, why is it gotta be so loaded, full of like,
looks like
messages? And
isn't it a little shocking to you, Carol, that Celine Dion shows up and performs at the Olympics? Like, isn't she like dying or something? After
all, she's been battling this rare neurological disease, and I really need to watch her documentary. I've been dying to see it, but I saw clips where she looks very ill. She's in a wheelchair. She has seizures. She at one point goes to sing, and like hardly anything comes out. Like, she can't even like hit a note. And it's Celine Dion, one of the greatest singers ever, and the fact that she couldn't sing. So when she came out, I think everyone was probably wondering, oh my God, is she going to be able to pull this off? One, you have to have the stamina if you're that sick. And like I said, she's been having seizures and things, like, to take the risk to stand there, sing this song, and to look so strong and healthy and doing it, knowing that she's been battling a lot of stuff behind closed doors, is just, I got a little bit emotional. I was just like, oh my God, like, she killed it. She did so good. No.
Think about the damage that she's caused.
Stop it.
In the 90s, the number of people that she made cry and made sad with that song in Titanic, right?
Oh my God.
Unemotional grown men cried in the theater after that 3-hour session, and that song was in big part to blame for it. The level of planetary sadness that was caused by her voice, I think this is probably karma. This is like the yin and the yang. Like, the universe said, you know what, you've done enough damage. Why don't you sing something positive?
She's an angel.
And we'll let your throat be healthy. And instead, she's suffering, and now she's singing at an Olympic Games where they're mocking Christ. So, I don't know. There's something going on there.
I don't think she had anything to do with the crazy Christ.
That's the
whatever.
I'm going to zoom in on it, but that's the the blackout.
That was the only lit.
Yeah. That's the only thing that's lit up in here.
That to me is one of the best parts of the story, right? So they have this whole scandalous mockery of Christianity, and then the next day they go into a major power outage. I would assume by now they got their power back in Paris, but it was like 16 hours and running, total blackout.
Yeah.
And it was a coincidence. And there's some funny memes going around where, like, after that whole opening ceremony, Jesus just threw the power breaker and was like, all right, enough of that.
He's like, I've had enough.
This is something, man. Yeah. It's It's something.
But that image you showed was during the outage, the only building in the city that had power was like a Catholic cathedral.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm trying to.
I mean, the irony there is just fantastic.
Yeah. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah. And then they scrub all the content from their official pages, and now they're on an apology tour saying they didn't mean to offend anybody. I don't know what they meant to do, but according to them, it wasn't offend people.
I mean, was it supposed to be funny? Was it supposed to be like woke? Like, I don't know what the point was, I guess. And
who did they think their audience was? Like, who did they think was going to watch that and go, yeah, I love this. I love that instead of bread on the Last Supper table as the body of Christ, it's a giant bowl of fruit with a naked blue man in there dressed up like one of the guys that got laid off from the Fruit of the Loom commercial. Like, who did they think that they were pandering to with this show? Like, what audience was like, this is what I've been waiting. I waited 4 years to see this. This is great.
Especially the Olympics. Like, I feel like the Olympics are this respectable, like the best athletes in the world are coming together to compete and show what they got. And it's like, it's like a big deal. And then to just open it with something so it just didn't make any sense. Like, I didn't get it, but that's awesome that the only thing on was the cathedral and the rest of the lights went out. There's no coincidence. So that's either God or somebody was really mad and just.
I would like to think that there's some sort of like V for Vendetta vigilante who was like, you know what? I'm cutting the power off, like a cyber attack.
Yeah.
And then they go to the people in charge and go, you want your power back on? You're going to scrub all that stuff off the internet and you're going to apologize. And
you're going to say you're sorry. Yeah.
And then I'll turn the power back on. Like, they didn't gain anything from it other than just to make them own their actions in my fantasy of this vigilante. But wouldn't that be a good way for the story to go?
Yeah, I like it. Let's say that that's what happened.
Like, where's the cyber attack that's going to wipe out my credit card debt? Like, where's Rob?
Still waiting for that. Still waiting for that.
Where's the modern day Robin Hood? Right?
Didn't that happen in Fight Club? The movie Fight Club?
But they
where's Edward Norton when you need him?
They always do these things like CrowdStrike. We have a global outage of all computers on the Microsoft network. All the planes are down. The hospitals can't perform surgeries. All these terrible things are happening. And it didn't benefit us. Didn't wipe out my student debt. Didn't make my mortgage company forget who I am. But, all those investment firms that put short bets against Donald Trump's stocks the day before he got shot, come Monday morning, it was, oh, no, we didn't bet against that. Like, we had inside info that he was going to be dead on Monday. So we were predicting his stock were going to tank. We didn't do that. It was a clerical error. And then CrowdStrike takes down the whole fucking internet, and they're out there scrubbing servers, making sure all the breadcrumbs and emails about that conversation are gone. That's how it goes. Like, where's the good guy cyber attackers? Where are they at?
Right. I agree.
They're called white hat hackers.
Can somebody play Bonnie Tyler? Because I need a fucking hero.
Yeah, they're called white hat hackers. Yes. They're out there. But yeah, I agree.
Well, of those that we've seen, right? They have to defect to Russia to protect themselves, like Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, who ends up in a prison for 5 years on no actual charges because they hack into and they reveal what's going on behind the curtain. And rather than us go, oh my God, let's atone for our sins and fix what's broken in our system, they get labeled terrorists or they get charged with treason. So it just goes to show, like, if you want to be a good vigilante, you better be really good, because if they catch you, you're going to die. Right? Like, all the WikiLeaks and the NSA stuff that leaked from those two guys about how the government's spying on everybody and listening to your phone calls, using the Patriot Act illicitly. Like,
that's crazy.
I heard he's free now. Julian Assange. I heard
he made some deal. Yeah. He got released, and I don't know what the terms were, if he had to wipe all of his servers. Who knows?
Not sure.
It's wild stuff.
But I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. That was wild. Not a good fit, like, for the Olympics. Like, I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't know what that was all about.
It's there's also, like, somebody, I'll say they again, love to keep
collective.
us as people at odds with one another. So if it feels like your religion's being attacked, if it feels like your political stance is being attacked, the type of music that you like is being attacked, like it gets people in their feelings, and then you become aggressive and combative. And my conspiracy mind says they do this to drive a wedge between us because there's strength in numbers. If we were all kumbaya, we'd all be like, well, since we all get along, what problems are there we can fix? Oh, let's look at the people in charge and see what they're up to. What's happening with our tax dollars? How are our elections being regulated? But as long as we're fighting with each other, red versus blue, Christian versus Muslim, then you don't have the bandwidth to rise up and see how bad you're getting by a system that doesn't actually represent you. So I think things like that are probably at a higher level planned and agreed to cause the controversy. Someone with a lot of money and a lot of influence in the Olympic Committee probably said, yeah, we like that. Do that one. And what's it do? It causes all this controversy. And now that dominates the news cycle. And while we're talking about that, we're not talking about other things that actually matter.
Yep. That's a good point. This is going to sound like a very trivial comparison, but honestly, you probably haven't seen it because most men haven't. But the Barbie movie, that is exactly what the Barbies do to win Barbie Land back, is they distract the Kens so bad that they start fighting amongst each other. And then while they're battling each other for Kenergy, the Barbies take Barbie Land back. And it's exactly what you just explained. So
yeah, I mean,
you should watch it.
It's what's happening, right? It happens in Barbie Land and it happens here. But it's also a hard thing to fix because people are emotional, right? Like if you don't have some like Buddha-like control over your emotions, when someone pokes on that nerve, you're going to react. And you could be aggressive. You could be sad and fall apart and lose whatever traction you had. So, control over your emotions is something that should be strived towards by a lot of people because it just makes you stronger. I think it comes from beliefs too. Like if you believe in something, like if you believe something, that becomes your version of reality, right? Like folks that completely are diehard behind their religious beliefs. They think 100% like that is how reality is. That is how life is to be lived. And if aliens were to come down and show themselves and prove to the people beyond a reasonable doubt that, oh, all that's just stuff you made up. We actually created you in a lab like 400,000 years ago. We had these monkeys and we tinkered with them and you're this experiment and we've just been watching you. It's crazy. But you made up all this religious fairy tale stuff. That's not how any of the universe works. Here, we'll show you. And it can't be refuted. There are people that would be shattered by that because their beliefs are their reality and your beliefs dictate your emotions. People would lose their minds. They'd riot in the streets, like systems would break down. And that same trend, I think, exists in a lot of things. You believe that, your husband thinks you're the only one, and then you find out he's banging 4 secretaries at work. Like your reality has just been shattered. Your beliefs are shattered. And now your emotions will run wild.
Right.
This is how the puppet.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. And I do think once your emotions are involved, it's really hard to let anything practical or anything, you can't hear it anymore. It's like your emotions take over your whole brain and you're just kind of like running off of those feelings. And it's like, yeah, it turns something off. So I think I just like to be open to many possibilities and I like to hear different opinions and theories and I like to kind of come to my own conclusion, but I like to say I'm pretty open to many possibilities. And I just think as a human, you should just be curious and kind of live life that way. It's my 2 cents.
I don't know. If I was the town crier and I was trying to warn everybody.
You'd be good at that.
Or if I was, the redcoats are coming, the redcoats are coming.
That would be you for sure. Yeah.
I would say that people, especially right now, right? Because times are wild right now. Like we had a former president almost get assassinated. We had a current one step down. You have a new candidate in the Democratic seat that wasn't elected by anybody. That when she ran on her own, didn't get 1% of the popular vote in the Democratic primary. She didn't get a single I think, yeah, they said you can. So I heard someone say you can count all the delegate votes that she got at the Democratic convention on one hand if that hand had no fingers. I think that was Bill Maher.
Yikes.
So here's a woman who was so unpopular and then was chosen by Joe Biden to be her VP candidate, and now by default has become the Democratic nominee. And all the while, the Democrats are telling you democracy is on the line as they just christened a candidate with no voice of the people. So that's crazy. Right. You've got more and more things like riling up in society, the division getting wild. And I think as you approach these sorts of times, realizing what your emotions are doing to you is so important to like try and get a hold of, because if things do get wild as we move forward through the next couple of years, like people being able to stay level-headed is the best shot we have at not devolving into just chaos.
Falling apart. Yeah, no, completely. I agree with that.
But yeah, so I just think that people should have their emotions as like a compass, not necessarily dictate everything that they do. This is going to get pretty freaking wild, man.
I seriously doubt we'll have lack of content for this, because there's always something. I mean, I can't even keep up the amount of news, the amount of things that are happening. It does feel like the door has come off the hinges, and it's just chaos like all the time. And so we'll have to get into that a bit more next time. But I've had fun chatting with you, and yay for episode 1. And I hope everybody had fun listening to us ramble.
Yeah, it's. I don't think we're gonna have any shortage of topics. The chaos that exists in the world is equal to the chaos that exists in your home when you're raising kids and juggling a job or no job, Carol.
Hey,
so
I have a job. I just don't get paid for it. Okay. I work from 7 to 7 every day. So bite me.
The fact that your kids go to bed at 7 is incredible.
I try. They don't fall asleep till 8, but
there will be no shortage of content. Cool. I mean, I think the great point of this podcast is to explore the nonsense that is just like everybody's life. We're all dealing with all kinds of crap. Inside the house, outside the house, etc. So it'll be fun. And maybe somewhere along the line, we can figure out who the problem is.
Oh, I already know. It's most likely you, but we can keep pretending and going along.
I'm trying to save everybody. I'm trying to save you all. How can I be the problem?
I'm the crazy.
Yeah.
We will see.
That's a spinoff. That's a spinoff. Spinoff podcast show. Steve saves the world.
Yeah. Steve saves the world.
From my bunker.
I love it.
Yeah, I want to thank today's sponsor, Preparation H, for contributing to this hemorrhoid of a podcast. To anyone who's listened to this all the way through, I am super appreciative. I hope they enjoyed it. Maybe they got a little nugget of wisdom, or their eyes opened about a conspiracy or two. But if they did like it and they want to come back, I hope they hit that like button, follow, and check us out next time.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for checking us out. And we will see you next time. Bye.